This is 3ABN Now with John and Rosemary Malkovich.
Hello and welcome to 3ABN Now. I'm sure that you're going to enjoy our program today. It's on a subject that I like. It's a subject that we find about in the beginning of the Bible, in the book of Genesis. It's also, we'll find a little bit more about recreation at the end of the Bible in Revelation chapter 1. But right in the middle is how it makes it all possible to go from the beginning to the end. It's through Jesus Christ. And I'd encourage you to get your Bible and follow along, because with us today we have Claude Goddard, and he's an international speaker on creation, and I'm looking forward to listening to him. Welcome to the program, Claude.
Thank you, John.
It's nice to have you here. You know, to be a person who goes around the world talking on creation must be pretty exciting.
It is. It takes a lot of my time, but I enjoy it every minute.
Very good.
It's one of my favourite subjects.
Oh, good.
And before we get right into the program, because I know he's got a lot of things to say, and you'll be interested, because he's really going to be looking at questions that he's encountered as he goes around speaking in these seminars from people all over the world. And the same question comes up: where, why and how.
Yes.
We want to know where we originate from, where we're going, and what God has got in store for you and me. But Rosemary, before we do, you have a text that Claude has chosen.
I have. Claude has chosen Isaiah 60, verse 1. And it says, "Arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee." Now, Claude, what is special about that verse to you?
Oh, it's very special because I understood this verse when I got into the experience of studying creation, and once I have been sort of conversant with all these topics, I felt that I had to go and shine for others, and I couldn't keep it for me.
So rise, shine.
Rise and shine, yes.
I like the concept of Jesus giving the commission, go ye and teach.
And teach.
And really that's what you're doing.
Yes.
Because like all human beings, I know you're an engineer, and we'll find out a little bit about that. As an engineer, you don't just become an engineer. You actually have to go and sit and study and learn all the concepts and principles. And
yeah, and the Lord had me many years studying the topic.
Is that right?
In different ministries, different other sources, a lot of sources around, but I had the opportunity to reach them, to be there, to go into seminars, to study books, 25 years doing this until it was the time to rise and shine.
That's terrific. Now, I'm sure, like myself, the viewers out there and the listeners would want to know, who is Claude Goddard? Where did you grow up? I notice you have a little accent, and my English language is second to my mother language of my mother and father. But tell us a little bit, where were you born, Claude?
Yes, I was born in Chile, South America, and migrated to Australia when I was about 30 years old. 30
years old.
Yes, really 36 to be exact. And I've been living here in Australia for almost 30 years.
30 years. Now tell me about your family. How many brothers and sisters, and about your mum and dad? Were they Christian people? Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Really, my families are all Catholics, as in Chile. Everyone there is Catholic. That's the way to be. But I turned into Adventism when I was about 30.
30 years.
That's my age of conversion.
Yeah.
Yes, when I find the truth in living in Hawaii.
Oh, you were in Hawaii.
I was in Hawaii for a year or 3 months. And living there, I just tuned into the program called It's Written by George Vanderman at that time. And I saw that was so interesting, so well presented, that I asked for a Bible study. And when the person came to give me a Bible study, I started studying. It was so easy, so logic, that I went through it, and after 6 months or so, I had the decision to baptize.
Fantastic. Now tell me, what were you doing in Hawaii, Claude?
Well, I was in a program between the U.S. Navy and the Chilean Navy, and I was loaned to the American Navy. So
you were a Navy officer?
I was a naval officer, yes.
Okay.
So at that time, I was a young officer. I had some duties on the ship, and part of that was, this is very interesting. I went as a Catholic. I was Catholic. I went to worship into a chapel that had triple purpose. One was to serve the Mass for
Yes.
Catholics, then the Jews for
And the Jews.
and the Jews, and the Protestant. So all the time they just have to close the saints and open the Jewish symbols, or just get rid of all of them and just be there for the evangelicals.
Is that right?
So but all the literature which was in the back was kept there. They didn't move. So I took one of those, which obviously was evangelical,
Yes.
and I find Jesus, you know,
Very
being
good.
a Catholic, and I thought this very important.
Mm.
And that probably was the very origin of my interest.
Okay.
So you see,
So it doesn't matter where you are, if you've got an open mind and God is leading, you
Yes.
follow that.
Yes.
And so you're a naval officer and you accepted the Seventh-day Adventist message, you were baptised.
Yes.
What did that mean about your work now as a naval officer?
Oh, that was impossible to match both. I
Okay.
had to be one or the other, and obviously I decided for Jesus.
Okay.
Amen.
So I retired.
You,
But I had already done my degree of engineering.
okay.
So I was an engineer. So I went into the civil life and with a title, and I could perform very well. No
Was that an easy decision, going from a naval officer and quitting your job? Is that something that's easily done in terms of not knowing what's going to happen next?
Well, it was risky.
It was-
very, very risky, because I had wife and 2 children at that time. So it was risky, but I think the Lord had the command. He was in command.
Because you honoured God,
Yes.
then the door was open for him to honour you by giving you something better.
Yes.
Because you got more pay.
Oh yes, that was fantastic. Because
So there was a
the
double
very
blessing.
first month I got paid in the new job, I got paid 3 times as much as in the Navy.
That's not a bad promotion.
No, that's very good.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
And you enjoyed your work, obviously.
Oh yes, I did. And then God moved me into another area, which was health.
Okay.
And
How do you go from engineering to health?
I would say faith, because I knew that I had some message, it was another message there, about the health reform. I studied the health reform when I got into the church, and thought this is very powerful. Why people
It's extremely powerful.
why people is not using this information? So I decided to study also and get into it. And after some years, I decided to move into that area, and we, with 2 doctors, 2 medical doctors, MDs, we formed a hospital. We put together a hospital. And we did a lot of health reform education. We treated people with a lot of ailments, which they're eternal, sick people are forever. So when you heal them, that's a very risky thing, because you can't heal people because you take them out from others' hands. Well, that's what happened. We were full of people, thousands of people visiting us and getting a new sort of view of life, of how to care about their health.
So where was this?
In Chile.
In
That was
Chile.
in Chile, yes.
Yeah. So I don't know too much about Chile. I know where it is
Yes.
on a map, but the population, you said, are mostly Catholic.
Yes.
What's the conviction of the people? Is it just a superficial one, or are they really spiritual in the sense?
Of course, there are all walks of life.
Yes.
Some are very spiritual, they're very committed, Opus Dei and other names, but others are just, because of
Nominal.
my family, nominal Catholics.
Yeah.
That's my family, by the way.
Okay.
And I am the only Seventh-day Adventist in my family.
In your family?
Yes. Among my brothers and other siblings, I'm just the only one. Except my daughter. I have one daughter which is Seventh-day Adventist.
Oh, that's very good. So you were doing that. And now I know where do you live now?
Yes.
In Australia?
In Melbourne, yes.
In Melbourne?
Melbourne, very cold. but-
Victoria.
Yes.
It's cold. It is cold. It can have 4 seasons in one day.
It's a little bit different to Hawaii.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So I'll just ask you, what brought you to Australia?
Well, by then I had acquired 6 more children into my family, because I married to a woman my wife Carmen. She had 6 children of her own.
Okay.
From 14 to 19 years old.
Okay.
And I took responsibility, and we decided to come to Australia so they would get an education. They were right in the very time to get educated.
And you had 4 children?
Yes, I had on my
By then
own
as
4,
well.
yes. So
That's a big undertaking, Claude.
very big. Now think about, what I did.
Tell me, how did you get into creation? What was it that brought you into the understanding, into the desire to investigate and find out about creation so you could start to teach people?
Well, because of my formation as an engineer, my mind is very sort of square. I have to fill squares, answers.
And that's true. What you're saying is true.
Yes, because I have to understand things. And that was when I baptized, was my first question to the pastor. Why, how can you explain carbon-14? That, in my mind, was proving millions of years at that time. And then the answer I got was unsatisfactory, really. And then I noticed that they didn't have the answers. So I said, all right, if they don't have the answer, I will get the answers myself. And I started studying. And that was the time when I started inquiring, getting books, magazines and all that, and start building up my knowledge on this. Until that time when I said, okay, I know too much to keep it just to my own.
So then you started to share it with other people?
Yes, I start this sort of voluntary self-supporting ministry.
Very good.
To get to others.
Yeah, I just want to cover a little bit of that because you really fund your own self. You fund your own travel and all your expenses, but you go around and by invitation, and particularly your main mother language is Spanish.
Yes.
So you feel that there are a lot of people speaking in English to convey the message, but a large population of the world speaks Spanish and they need to hear it too. And that's what you do. You travel to South America and you present seminars on creation.
Exactly right. The problem is that most, or if not all, the literature about creation is in English.
Okay.
So I study in English and translate it to Spanish, and all my presentations mostly are in Spanish.
Okay.
And I go to that public which hasn't got the information, unless they speak English and they can get it from the net. They will struggle to get information, and that's my experience. I get there to churches where people is amazed to know all this information we got about how God created things and how we can give evidence of it.
Yes.
And when they learn about it, they just cry. They're so excited about it. And that's what I do every year.
So at the seminars, are you addressing just people in the church, or do you go to schools and different other institutions?
Probably, I would say 80% to churches.
Yes.
About 15% to schools, all the Adventist school available. I go speeches to people in primary and secondary levels, and I also go to universities.
Okay.
Also both Adventist and lay universities, and also clubs. If a group invite me, I go over there. Houses, house group, whatever. I go and give a seminar.
Yeah. So we need to be talking to our own youth, and you go to the Youth Congress as a speaker. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So basically, we've got a little bit of understanding where you've come from, and what your experience has been. And I'm sure there's a lot of other interesting stories that you could tell.
I just want to ask a question. How many years have you actually been doing these, basically presentations, lectures, whatever you want to call them?
I started about 25 years ago.
That's a long time.
Probably initially was very, very seldom, probably shy doing this because I didn't know much. But later I started feeling stronger.
Yeah, you become more natural.
Yes, and today it's just it's my way of speaking.
That's wonderful.
About creation.
I think it's a wonderful thing because really it's revealing a very important truth, that we do have a creator. There's a lot of talk now, and I'm sure the viewers will know about intelligent design.
Yes.
You believe in creation. Do you see a difference between a creationist and someone who says
Yes.
they believe in intelligent design? Just fill us in what you think there.
Most definitely. There's a big difference because creationists, we believe in the Bible, we believe in God, in a God creator.
Yes.
And that God creator left evidence that of his creation, which is design, by the way.
Yeah.
But what we see in the Bible, we try to understand it in nature. So we go from the Bible to nature
Yes.
instead of the other way around. For instance, intelligent designers, the only thing they try to do is negate that they are creationists. They say, no, we're not creationists, we believe in an intelligent designer, but we don't brand it, we don't give it any name. Yeah, that's okay, it's a position, because if you're a creationist, that's an ugly word. You don't mention that word in the secular world because you will be branded as a fool or ignorant or whatever.
You know, I see now too, when I first joined the Seventh-day Adventist Church and I studied the Bible, I believe in the God creator. But now we're hearing about theistic evolution.
Yes.
And to me, that's a sort of a contradiction.
As a compromise.
Yeah.
Sure, you don't need evolution to show creation at all.
So I'm kind of looking forward now to getting in. You said as you travel in seminars, you have questions that you are asked.
Yes.
Frequently asked
Frequently asked
Frequently,
questions.
that's the pattern all the time.
All the time.
We select some 6 questions which are most common, and probably we should cover the answer I normally give.
Yes.
And they are not necessarily the 100% the truth,
Yes.
but they are probably the truth. I mean, here you can be so assertive of saying it is that way, because sometimes new things are discovered or things can be twisted a little bit, but this is the best answer we can give. Mainly with the first question that will come into screen, which is about why being the creation so good. And
Here it is here. This is the first question.
Oh yes. If God said that everything he had made was good, then why do some animals have killing features? And there's a very strong answer here, and I would like to share with you that answer. First of all, I have to quote, I'd like to go first to a Bible verse.
Yes.
2 Corinthians 10:5.
2 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 5. Here we are. If you've got your Bible, open it up, 2 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 5, and we read, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ.
That's correct. So every argument against God and everything that exalts itself above God should be just brought into captivity under the obedience of Christ. We cannot accept arguments which deny the Bible or against the Bible. We have to teach or learn about them and really explain things. And that's probably is what I'm going to do, trying to explain many of those things.
You know, in that question, Clive, it says God mentions good. Actually, when he created, if you look in the Bible in Genesis chapter 1, every time at the day of creation, he concludes with it was good, it was good, it was good, it was good, but then it was very good.
It was very good.
Yeah.
That's right. And then it says that the creation was over.
Yes.
He finished all creation, so everything just was perfect in place. And that's the point. If everything was perfect at that time, why we have animals like tigers or leopards or whatever with big fangs, with or for that matter snakes that not only have the fangs but also have the venom gland, the venom conduits, the secondary gland, and a structure, full structure, ready to kill.
That's right. How could that evolve?
Yeah.
Especially seeing some of the fangs are really big. I've looked at photos.
Big and hollow.
Some of them, yes, some are hollow to inject the poison, and some have got a little conduit. What is it?
Conduit.
A hollow down the back that the poison comes through. I mean, there's 2 different styles. But
So
some of them are huge.
I made myself that question, meaning, did God create all things good at the beginning? Did God made a second creation when the fall, because this is related to the fall, obviously. So God made a second creation where all the animals changed their features now for being attack or to kill. So
That's a good question.
Yes.
Because some animals have got really sharp claws.
And we had some information in the Bible, Genesis 3:16 to 19. If you want, I can just summarize it. It said, I will make your pregnancy very painful to women, okay? In pain you will bear children. Your desire, you will desire your husband, but he will rule over you. Then to man said, cursed is the fertile land because of you. In pain you will eat from it every day of your life. Weeds and thistles will grow for you, even as you eat the field plants. By the sweat of your face you will eat bread. So
something happened then?
Something happened. Everything just was turned upside down. So why this? Or how this could happen? We have another information which I want to share. Could you please read for me 1 Peter 1:19 and 20?
1 Peter 1.
1 Peter 1,
19
and 20.
And 20. Right. I'll read that one.
Yep.
1 Peter 1, 19 and 20. But with the precious blood of Christ, as of a lamb without blemish and without spot, who verily was foreordained before the foundation of the world, but was manifested in these last times for you.
Okay, so here were two main information I want to exalt. Christ was chosen before the creation, okay, of the world. So he would be chosen to die for all creation, humanity. And also this was revealed at the end of time, okay, so was prepared very early before creation, in eternity, and was manifested at the very end of this process, at the end of time. So what I'm trying to show here is that God prepared things beforehand.
Yes.
So God could, and I'm not saying this is exactly the only truth, but God could prepare animals, humans, and all his creation to manifest this second nature of fallen animals and humans after the fall. How could he do that? Through genes. Genes manifest manifest when they are on, but if they're off, they just don't manifest. They have no meaning. So what God could do was put the genes for creation of all the fangs, all the claws, for all the venom glands and all that. So at the time of the fall, they would express themselves being on, okay, which were not before. And now this does not preclude the goodness of the creation, because they were off, so they would never manifest if a creation would never fall.
So in the genes, there's a capability to turn on and turn off.
Turn off, correct.
We've talked about that before in different science programs.
Yeah, and we have a very good example of this in butterflies. You know, butterfly go into 3 stages. The egg goes into caterpillar or larva, and then with one set of genes, then another set of genes turn on, and they transform into a pupa or chrysalis, and then another turn on and goes into a butterfly, and the other turn off.
So there's 3 sets of genes.
Yes, correct.
When the little egg hatches and you get the little caterpillar, there are actually 3 sets of genes and 1 set for each different phase.
For phase, yes.
Isn't that amazing?
One is off, the other is on, and then on.
I wonder how that could have evolved.
Oh, no.
If evolution was true, how could there be 3 sets that come on and off at the right time?
Yeah,
there must be many more examples of that too.
Oh, yes, and goes in the list of not explained things from evolution. But you know, this is the way it probably worked in this case.
It's just like we can think with Adam and Eve that they must have had the genes for all of the different types of races, people races that are in the world.
Most definitely.
Whether it's Asians, the eyes, the colour of the skin, the hair, whatever, the African people with their darker skin, the short curly hair, the more the Caucasians.
Well, in terms of
they're all different.
In terms of races, just races, Adam and Eve had all the races in their genes, so they could produce, give birth to a white or a black,
because
or
God
in
loves
between.
diversity.
And that in itself would give it evidence to an intelligent design.
Oh yes.
Of God being able to do that. He's the one that spoke and it came into existence.
Yep.
So there's no question. That's a good point, that these animals were not, they were created, but they had the capability of changing if the genes were switched on.
That's correct, because all the genes are there, so the expression is the point. When they express themselves due to weather conditions, that they have to use those new features, or animals which attack them, or enemies, or food, lack of food, which give them that change. But genes express. It's not new information that is added on by mutation or any other process.
Okay.
That's definitely.
So
that's
circumstances can cause the change.
That is the mechanism. And think about this. All those mechanisms, which is like a Swiss Army knife with a lot of features, yes. Not all the features are all the time active. Some of them when they are required. And this happens with the genes that show up when they're needed. Why? Because a creator that knows beforehand things have put that for future challenges. But evolution has no means to predict the future. So why are they? Because they've been created by intelligent beings.
Because when we go from everything being good to a world where sin is in existence, where the devil is in control, God would foreknow that the different animals, even things like the bombardier beetle and all these different things, would need a form of protection.
Yes.
And so he would have that in the genes, and of course we know that with genes, that genes cannot evolve into a higher form of gene. They can only lose information, not gain information that's not there. So these genes would have to have been in place for protection.
Yes.
So God would be knowing what is going to happen, being a loving God, he would have already put that in for the future use.
And let me add to that every process of adaptation is loss of information.
That's right.
Yes. Never gain. Yes.
That's an important point when it comes to evolutionary theory.
Yes.
So I think we've answered that pretty well.
Yep. Let's go for the next one.
Yeah, what is the next one?
What is the best evidence in nature of a creator God?
So we're looking in nature.
In nature, yes.
Okay, so tell us.
So let's go into a Bible verse. Job 12, 7 to 9.
I'm just...
Job.
Job's...
Job, what was
12?
it? 12?
7 to 9.
7 to 9.
You can read that, Rosie.
Okay. But ask now the beasts, and they shall teach thee, and the fowls of the air, and they shall tell thee. Or speak to the earth, and it shall teach thee, and the fishes of the sea shall declare unto thee. Who knoweth not in all these that the hand of the Lord hath wrought this?
So this give us a challenge, or give Job a challenge, because God was challenging him. Ask them.
That's right.
They can teach you. How could the beast, all the animals, could teach Job? Or how could the birds tell him? Or how could the earth teach also? Or the fish explain to you? Different verbs, but the same idea, that they would teach Job about the creation. And to be honest, you say, oh, but they don't communicate, they're not intelligent to tell you things, they have no voice. How could they communicate and teach? And if you think a little bit, it's just about, the answer is design. Because they've been designed in such a way that it's marvelous how they've been put together. And I normally quote here the giraffe, or an eagle, And you can see they have a lot of features which are unique for that animal. For instance, eagles have hollow bones, or any bird for that matter, because they have to weight the less possible. Secondly, they have wings, and the wings have a big pectoral muscle, so to force the wings up and down. The wings have an aerodynamic profile, to lift. When they have speed and the wind is going through, they lift, which is the principle that every airplane uses. They have also control, flaps, so they come down, and you reduce speed, and you can land with a lower speed, exactly how planes do. Or you have control with your feathers, and even you have a very little fine control with the little feathers that will give you the balance when you're flying. I mean, if you can see all that aerodynamic shape of the animal, the tail also, that
like a rudder.
Is good. Yeah, like a rudder, because when you turn, the tail has to do its job. By the way, I'm a pilot myself, and little planes.
You can't maneuver a plane like the bird can maneuver.
No way. So you can feel how you fly. You can feel when you put your flaps and you hang on the air, and you may have a lot of feeling. But see, how could this happen in an animal? It's just because it's been designed. It's not coincidence.
But then the feathers also are like a zipper. They can unzip and zip back together again.
They have barbels, to lock.
And that is just amazing.
Yes, it's amazing.
It's interesting when you look at that concept. You don't see cows with wing flying, do you?
Yes.
So
I'm glad.
cows only walk on the ground.
You
know, the dynamics of the design of that particular one is meant to walk. It's not meant to fly.
Designed to purpose. Yes.
But there is a lot of evidence in nature, just even looking at eyes and how they work.
Oh, yes.
And the tongue, even with the being able to taste things and being able to wrap around. We've seen on the internet there's a man was in an MRI and he was singing. And you could see how the tongue was working while he was singing in there, and it actually made you feel like your throat was closing over with this huge tongue right down the back, and how it moves when we eat, when we talk.
Literature speak about 100 muscles moving when we're communicating and giving expression of our face. So that's over-design. I mean, that's a big word, over-design. Evolution just designed for survival.
Yes.
Yeah.
If it could design, it can, but if it could, it's just for survival. This is over-designed, and we are absolutely over-designed, which is another proof of our creation.
Brilliantly designed.
Yes, brilliantly designed.
More than what we would think.
Yes.
God put every idea in there. He didn't leave anything out.
Even beauty. You think beauty is a result of chance? Not at all. Beauty is designed by God. God put beauty in flowers, in animals, in humans, of course, in women, of course, absolutely. So it's just a perfect God. We know we have fallen, we are in a sinful state, but even that we can see the perfection of His creation.
You know, I look at the beginning of the creation story, before man was created, and this is something that you might want to consider. God created the environment and the companionship through animals, all for you and I to enjoy.
Yes.
And you know, it didn't include just what we saw, it was what we smelt and what we tasted. Everything was just perfect. And you know, Claude, at the end, and I know if you haven't read the end of the story in the Bible, the back of the book, you'll see that we are going to enjoy that environment again, and that's exciting. You know,
I am admired by dogs. Dogs, I think they represent how animals used to be with man in the before fall.
Okay.
And because they're so faithful, so helpful, so lovely to humans, without the humans don't deserve that. But animals, dogs are like that. They're so good. Yeah.
That's a wonderful thought, that you can see in nature the evidence of God, and it's something we need to look at more closely. We have another question.
Let's go.
And it goes like this. Is there any room for the supernatural beyond nature? What do you say, Claude?
Sorry, before going into that, I'd like just to finish with this. There's a genetic code.
Okay.
Oh,
Because I
yes.
was telling about intelligent design and design in animals, but we have a genetic code inside us with codons, three letters together that forms a codon, which is amino acid. But then we form a full alphabetic code with all the 64-letter code, and that forms ideas, proteins, functions, coordination. What we are, it's all defined in this language.
And how could it evolve? Because it has to be complete.
Absolutely impossible. That's a very point I'm going to make in the next question. It's impossible that all this coordination, which is intelligent, could happen by itself, by chance. Chance is a really stupid word, if we can look at it. Chance can explain anything.
That's right.
Anything. Yeah. This is a much bigger topic, but let's cover that. There is much intelligence in genetic code.
Yes,
It's
that's
absolutely
right.
fantastic.
And what they're finding out today, Darwin would not have brought up his theory of evolution if he understood the genetic code. But they only started finding working out the genetic code in 1952, wasn't it?
Yeah, the DNA.
Working with genes.
Yeah, DNA, and Dr. Crick but I want just to cover one thing. This design argument is getting every day stronger because of discovery of God's creation, and now they have less excuses to believe in God, not to believe in God. And there are two big enemies of this, and you will be surprised to know what are the enemies. One is the Hubble telescope, because it's been discovering all the universe.
It's big.
It's huge. It's in order. It's you can explain a lot of things. A lot of things which are there. You can find any sun lighting up. You can see any creation of suns. That's basic for the Big Bang. But okay, that's another topic again. And the second big enemy are microscopes. The electronic microscope, which is giving what you were just telling.
Yes.
The inside of a cell. Darwin thought that the cell was just a group of gelatin, of things which were not very formed and just very, very sort of airy-fairy thing. But now we know that inside the cell we have a full world of information, of knowledge, of different, I would say, intelligence.
Yeah.
All
There's
put
programming in
together.
each one. Yeah.
Yes, and just think about the kinesin, or the kinesin, which are robots transporting chemicals inside the cell. How could they work? How could they do what they do? How could they organize themselves? And many other things, motors, rotary motors in the mitochondria producing ATP. How could rotary motors work there, being so perfectly designed? So that's all we know today, and much more, and that Darwin had no idea, couldn't have idea.
That's right.
I think if he ever thought that, if he ever knew about this, he wouldn't be Darwin today.
No.
Well, if everyone knew really what we're talking about and what scientists are discovering, we would wonder too now, today, today.
Yes.
We want to keep going, Claude. So what's this next question that you...
Okay, is there a room?
Supernatural.
Yeah, for the supernatural beyond nature. Supernatural is something real, it's something absolutely there. We cannot deny it. Why? Because we have many things which we cannot explain by the natural means. One of them is the origin of life. Life exists. We're here. Plants are here. Animals are here. How could we exist if you cannot form life with minerals put together, and whatever minerals you want to put together, or molecules, you will not produce life.
So there has to be some supernatural.
It has to be a life giver.
Yes, a life giver. And even the complexity it's involved in that life cannot be put together by an intelligent mind. Ours, a human intelligent mind, has to be put by a supernatural God. And that's the only way to explain. Keep in mind that no one has ever produced life in this world. With all the technology, with all the knowledge, it's a nowhere. It's impossible. So it has to come from a supernatural source.
That's right.
Secondly, what you just spoke about, the DNA. DNA is so sophisticated, so difficult to produce, so much a supernatural thing that has to be an intelligent mind behind it to put it together. But not just that, but we need, that is DNA, the software. But we need also hardware to produce proteins with the software. And those are all the micro machines that we have inside the cell producing the proteins.
It's fascinating.
Fascinating. And also, you need a repair system.
That's
Because
right.
if you don't have the repair system, and this was the Nobel Prize last year, 2015, which they sort of enhance the knowledge about repair systems in the cell. If not, we would be dead.
Yes.
That's it.
Very true.
Yes.
Very true.
Next one is the formation of the universe. We have a huge universe. Big Bang doesn't explain a thing, because Big Bang has a lot of contradictions, which I don't want to get into that, but that's another big issue. The other is the magnificent order we have in our creation, mathematical properties everywhere,
Yes.
physical laws, universal constant. How could that happen by chance? This has to be an intelligent mind that put it together.
An intelligent mind who knows the most sophisticated mathematics.
Yes, okay.
I like
Sure.
a text in the Bible, and it says, the wisdom of man is but foolishness with
Yes,
God.
it is.
And really, that's what we're talking about. We're trying to compare a finite mind with an infinite mind.
Correct.
And so, you know, the Bible is really to be read and to believe by faith, because really, the evidence is there of a God, of a creator, but are we going to be wise enough to believe it?
Yes, correct. That makes a difference between the creationist and the evolutionist.
Yes.
If you don't want to believe, all right, that's your...
Yeah.
Okay, and the next one is nanoelectric motors. So many nanoelectric, little, very minimum size electrical motor inside us, inside the rotary engines, everywhere. How could that happen? If all and that comes to my engineering mind, a electrical motor has a lot of good things inside, but it's not perfect. But these motors are perfect. They're just so efficient, and they could run 100,000 RPMs, which no motor can do that, because it will just
Disintegrate.
disintegrate. Yes,
Yeah.
but they can. And last one is intelligent design in all animals, creatures, in irreducible complexity. Okay? We had just had a program in one of our channels in Australia with Brian Cox. He's a researcher in a program called Forces of Nature, and he was explaining about life. And he went into all these crystal flakes, saying crystal flakes are in order, regular patterns because of the molecule of water, which gives 6 sides, and beautiful, perfectly explained. And from then, he piggybacked into life. And from then, we got life. Sort of,
That's a big gap.
Big gap, absolutely. See, how can he say that when such a difference between a thing which has not any complexity, but is just regular, into a specified complexity, which is
Extremely complex.
extremely different.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he implied both things. Okay. Next question is, are there any pre-flood human remains or fossils? And probably I should go fairly quickly into this.
Yeah.
And we can say this, that when a person, we're talking pre-humans, pre-flood humans,
Okay.
if they, what happened with the majority? Majority escaped to the hills, okay, because the flood was coming, and this was a tsunami. So they escaped, and they floated. At the end, they died, and they floated. When you float, you bloat, and then you go sink.
Sink down.
Sink down. And then these predators there's a lot of other processes that happen that will tend to make disappear all the bodies. Okay, that's a fact of life today. And there is approximately 235 million pre-flood humans living. That's because of calculation of human population. And opportunity to locate them is very little because of the huge fossil record. And the huge fossil record goes into one experience. We had a tsunami on the Southeastern Asia, 2004.
Yes.
And in that tsunami, about 280,000 people were killed.
That's right.
Of those, 43,000 were never found.
Never found.
They disappeared.
How many? 43,000?
43,000.
That's amazing.
And that's approximately the amount of people that will disappear, because it's natural that they are dragged by all these rocks and trees and shrubs and all that, and they just are grinded. I mean, it's horrible to say, but that's the way it happens. So people just disappear. So you will not find those rest or those remains of that people. Okay,
and the antediluvians and during the flood,
yes,
that was a catastrophic event.
Oh yes,
in huge,
absolutely, worldwide.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it was horrible. And now, if you go into volumes, which is very important to quote, volumes are absolutely out of our mind. All the fossils are within the sediments. And the volume of sediments we have in the world is 700 million cubic kilometers.
Cubic kilometers now.
Cubic kilometers, yes.
Yeah.
And just to have a measure of that, the oceans, all the oceans of the world are approximately 1,400 million cubic kilometers. That is to say that sediments are half of the water of all the world. Okay, so that's the amount, that's the volume.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. So if you want to search on that volume, you can't. I mean, it's impossible. And let me also tell you that when you find a fossil, it's by chance. No one is making tunnels to find fossils. So all fossils just find because of the erosion, or because a lake disappeared or a river eroded, and that's the only way you can find fossils. So that's why human remains are not found. There's not one, by the way, that we can recognize and say this is a former human. Okay.
I believe it's also because it was destroying all sign of humanity in their terribly sinful state.
Okay, if you Genesis 6:7, please. We'll say exactly that.
Genesis chapter 6 and verse 7.
That's to do with the flood.
And the Bible says here, Genesis 6 verse 7, and the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast and creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. So this saying there, he will destroy from the face of the earth.
Yes.
Exactly.
So will you find it?
Worldwide.
Will you find it?
No, because the intention was to destroy them.
Yeah.
Yes. We have quotes from Ellen White also that some hills, wind pushed on the ground, top of the hills, and was deposited on top of the bodies, to never to be discovered. Okay, so that was the intention. We have that in Spiritual Gifts, page 77, volume 3, page 77 and 78, if you want to read a quote later.
Yeah.
What's the best evidence for the universal flood? That was the next one. And obviously the best is the fossils, marine fossils we have on top of the hills. Here we have a sample of a fossil, which is an ammonite, found in the Everest. And this is an ammonite, as I said before, which is in two halves, and it's just a fantastic demonstration that the Everest was at one time under sea, under the water. And marine fossils were deposited there. I'm not saying it was the bottom of the sea, but it was covered by water with remains of marine fossils at one time. That's why we have ammonites like this. We have trilobites, we have algae, we have fish, we have every kind of marine fossil. By the way.
And in the picture, it's like the one that you can see the hands holding it. That's the same.
Yes, correct. That's an ammonite, yes. And I can tell you that 95% of all the fossil record are marine fossils. 95%.
95%?
Yes, correct.
Marine animals?
Marine fossils, yes, of this kind.
But it would make sense too, because it was a deluge of water that we're talking about. And so the species that God created in the water would be obviously deposited more than anything else.
Yes, correct.
And also the fact that they are only small compared to the bigger fossils like human beings and animals and things that could have been
I mean, yeah,
washed into a
yes.
hole or something more likely than the smaller things would remain.
And dismembered. That is a very important feature in fossils. They're all dismembered.
Yes.
Bits and pieces here and there because they've been washed away. Not just the Everest, the Andes ranges, the Pyrenees, the Grand Canyon, Bolivia for that matter, all very high places, 8,000 meters, the Everest, or others which 4,000, 5,000 meters high, they're still with fossils there. So that's the best proof that there was a big, big event around the world.
I keep thinking nowadays everybody buys Himalayan salt.
Oh yes,
So
yes.
you know the salt
pinkish,
deposit, the pinkish salt.
Yeah.
You know, so that's also evidence because that just didn't happen to be there. It had to be deposited there.
Yes, correct.
I think we should just go ahead and do our address roll right now. Claude has some information that you can write down with a pen and paper right now if you would like to get in contact with him to come and speak at your church or at your school, or if you want to contact him with any questions, you can do so in these details.
Claude Goddard has presented creation seminars all around the world and has studied this topic in depth for the past 25 years. If you would like Claude to present a series at your church, you may contact him in the following way. You can email Claude on claudegoddard@gmail.com. That's Claude Goddard, all one word, @gmail.com. Contact him today. He'd love to hear from you.
I hope you got all those details. With us, we're talking to Claude Goddard. He's a speaker, an international speaker on creationism, and I know that he's got one more a question that he's commonly asked that we want to look at, and we're glad that you're still with us, Claude, and thank you. The question, what does it say? Let's have a look at it.
Well, the first goes if dinosaurs are real animals. And I would like to answer that one from the start. Yes, they are.
Yes.
Some people believe that it's just a creation of some
Warped
people.
mind.
Yes.
Cartoon.
Someone who wasn't
They're
altogether
They're
there.
totally real. Secondly, who created them? They were created by God. The dinosaurs are animals, are reptiles, and they're exactly as a crocodile, a turtle, or any other reptile for that matter. So there's no problem that a dinosaur was created by God. Satan has no power to create anything. Okay, so and man even less power. We cannot create any kind of combined different species. We cannot.
And we know they're real, Claude, because everywhere people are unearthing the skeletal remains of these creatures, and they are big.
Yeah.
They're not small.
Well, I'd like to speak in a different time about the dinosaur itself. I have a program on that. But this time, if they were allowed into the ark, and the answer is yes. And there is a very
You're
good
saying they would have been allowed in the
They
ark?
were allowed into the ark, yes.
Okay.
Not all of them. Ellen White tells us that the big animals, probably the ones you were just mentioned, were not allowed because man will not have control over them.
Okay, that's a
So
good thought.
they should be left out. And others which were combined, you can make different mixtures within the same species. Say a lion and a tiger or a leopard, you can mix them because they come from the same branch, from the same ancestral parents. Okay, so yes, you can do amalgamation, call it that way. In this case, Ellen White also tells us about amalgamation, which is a common question in my seminars, but that has a good explanation. And people at that time used to probably do some mix of animals to get more aggressive animals, so they would be able to go to war with them. And that was the purpose. And God didn't allow those animals which were twiggled to survive.
Especially
so
if they were very aggressive.
Yes.
That's like today, we can breed a certain type of dog for a specific purpose.
You can get a more aggressive dog depending on which dogs you breed from.
That's exactly the principle, yes. So those animals, those dinosaurs, which were smaller, which were not that aggressive, which were just, say, dragons, yes, we're allowed into the ark. So the point is, if the Bible is what we believe is true, then animals, dinosaurs, and men or humans should have lived together at one point in time. And what proof we have that they did? Well, we have today a lot of pictures, drawings, and things that show us that it's a reality. For instance, this. This is a drawing in a cave in Utah, in the USA, a man and a dinosaur all together. We have others, a sauropod within a petroglyph. We have others in other rocks, or in a temple in Cambodia. It's called Taprom. It's a clear picture there of a stegosaur. And they're there. How could they know about it? You know, and there's another in the Mexican culture about all little figurines with that kind of features. How could they know if paleontology only started existing from the 1800s onwards? So they couldn't know how they shaped, and they have perfect shape. There's another tomb with the same information, and so on. Lots and lots of information. Marco Polo spoke about it. Alexander the Great spoke about it. Herodotus spoke about it. And we have a lot of information which comes to the conclusion that, yes, they should have had the knowledge of those animals.
That's a good thought, and we're going to have to conclude on that because our time is... But Claude, you know, there's an opportunity for you to say to someone, you know, you to speak on creation. What would you tell them right now in terms of what the Bible says about creation?
Oh, I would say that the Bible is absolutely the truth. We should keep the Bible as the Word of God, which contains the truth, which contains information that if we are with open heart, we will understand and keep it for our own. This has to be a process of understanding, of believing, and at the end of the day, have in your heart.
That's a great thought. Amen. That's a good thought to finish with. Jesus is coming. We need to get ready. Put your eyes on the Bible and learn of Jesus, and you will be saved. God bless you.
Amen.